Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today, friends, we have another exciting guest on our podcast. His name is Wayne Turner. He's with the North Carolina Green Party, and he's running for governor. So welcome to the podcast, Wayne.
Well, thank you for having me.
If we get started by you kindly giving us an introduction to yourself, a brief biographical sketch, that would be great.
Okay, well, I'm 69 years old, almost 70. I live in North Carolina, in Pittsboro, North Carolina, which is more or less in the center of the state, except for a couple of brief forays elsewhere. I've lived here all my life. I was born here, educated here. I've held numerous types of jobs. I've been everything from a laborer to a senior research engineer at a respected scientific institute, the Research Triangle Institute. I retired as a manager of a company that makes plumbing tools. So I've got very broad work experience and a lot of practical education to go with it.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. So what led you to the Green Party in particular?
Well, in 2000, I watched what happened in the Bush-Gore campaign, and what I observed was that despite, the clear political interference by the Republicans in Florida, that the Democrats simply did not push back. They allowed the campaign to be stolen from them, and when the Supreme Court handed the nomination to George W. Bush, the response of the Democrats was to turn around and tell the Greens that they had cost them the election, which is patently false.
Yes.
And I was unhappy that there were not alternative parties to the two-party system, which we call the duopoly. I think the Libertarians call it the uniparty. So I began to see what was required to make over the U.S. political system into one where there was more competition for ideas. And what I found out was that it's very, very difficult to do, and the difficulty lies in the fact that the duopoly parties control election law. They decide who does and does not get on the ballot.
Yep.
In some states, they make it easy to get on the ballot. In other states, they make it difficult. The federal government will not interfere in this because the Constitution has been interpreted to say that election law is in the purview of the states.
Yep.
So we have a state-by-state battle to get on the ballot. And it's gotten to the point now where the Democrats, when we do get on the ballot, they actively attack us. They attack our petitions. They attack our efforts. In 2022, we ran Matt Hogue for Senate in North Carolina, and we used his campaign to get on the ballot. The Democrats attacked us at the Board of Elections, forcing us into court where the federal government said, no, you can't do this, and forcing the state to let us on the ballot. And that same scenario is now playing out in states across the U.S. as the Democrats attack the Stein-Weir campaign, where they're also losing in court, but in some cases they've been able to use state law to keep the Greens off the ballot there. So the situation is very stacked against competition in politics. Yeah. Outside of the Democrats and Republicans. I feel like this is an issue of basic fairness, and that's what led me to get into the Green Party.
Okay, that sounds like a good journey to get there. So for this campaign, what is your green vision for the campaign? What issues do you want to bring to the forefront? What's on your platform?
Well, my platform covers, the same issues that the other parties cover, economic issues, education issues, labor issues. People think of the Greens as an environmental party, and we certainly are. In fact, we're explicitly an eco-socialist party in North Carolina. But we realized that it's very difficult to get people to focus on the environment when they have to worry about paychecks, where their next meal is coming from, child care, health care, the price of housing, the entire panoply of our economy that weighs heavily down on the working class and on labor, and especially on the poor. These issues have to be addressed. But at the same time, we point out that all of our production for the goods and services that we enjoy, especially that the wealthier people enjoy, depends on extraction from the environment. And when there's nothing to extract anymore, our economy will collapse. Our economic and social relations will collapse. And so we have to start thinking about our economy in terms of preservation of the environment for future generations.
Sure.
Right now, we do a good job of that. Of course, there are specific issues I care very much about in North Carolina. One of those is education. We used to be known as the education state. We had robust programs for pre-K education, but since the politically engineered takeover of our legislature in 2011, the system of public education in North Carolina is being destroyed, essentially. There's really no other word for it. It's simply being underfunded, and we're putting public money into these school voucher programs. Down here, they're called, I believe, educational opportunity scholarships or something similar, to disguise the fact that really what they are is public money going to private investors, private schools, charter schools, and being taken away from the children that don't live in areas where these things are considered profitable by the market. So,
Sure.
And we're also seeing our university system attacked and dismantled as well.
Okay.
It's very disheartening, and a lot of my campaign focuses on pushing back on that.
So what exactly is happening with the university specifically?
Well, the Board of Trustees and the Board of Governors of the UNC system has basically been appointed by the legislature, which is very ultra-conservative, and they're attacking faculty tenure. They've created a state-funded unit here called the School of, I believe it's School of Civic Leadership, with the open intention of turning it into a conservative think tank, taking public money. They're pretty much on record as saying this, and they have elected chancellors who are very authoritarian, who don't believe that student protest is something that should be allowed, which is an ancient tradition here, and well, at least since the 1950s. And they're trying to turn the university system and the public education system, for that matter, into a conveyor belt that kicks out students that are trained to go to work for capital investment and corporations, and they're defunding and de-emphasizing the arts, the humanities, anything that has a liberal background. Probably the worst example of this is they passed a law saying that nobody in the UNC system could bear the title of distinguished professor unless they were a STEM professor. And if you have to pass a law to do that, you're pretty much saying that you don't care about anything except what can be done to convert the universities into these diploma mills for capitalism. So that's also very disheartening.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm concerned about the economics here. We have a lot of natural resources in the state, but our population is growing so rapidly that we are putting enormous pressure on them. This is especially true in our coastal regions. We see unbridled housing development, and at the same time, we rely heavily on the seafood industry on the coast. But the damage that we're doing with this unbridled development to the salt marshes and the estuaries is interfering with fish production. And the state, has a Department of Environmental Quality that tries to manage these fisheries and needs data and information to do so, but they're underfunded. They can't hire the people they need to do the management that's needed to balance out everyone's concerns. So this is another instance of the state simply saying that we are not interested in investing public money into the future of the citizens of North Carolina, the future of the population, and that gets reproduced almost everywhere. So this is a big problem. Another thing I would promote is the history of public banks.
Okay.
The private banks don't have a good history of building communities, as my platform points out. When I first looked into public banking many years ago, I found the name Tapeworm Bank, and this applies to most of the major banks in the U.S. They enter communities, they make loans, but the loans aren't they don't make high-risk loans. They make low-risk loans, and the most profit that they take from them doesn't go back into the community. It's sucked up into the pockets of investors and CEOs, and the banks themselves are essentially, I view them as parasites. If we had public banking, this wouldn't be an issue.
Okay. So you want to change the banking system there?
Well, I at least want the state to have an alternative bank that will not look solely at the amount of profit they make when they make decisions about making loans.
Okay.
We need, there's no reason for us to make a profit off of our people, off of the human beings, the labor that produces our goods. If we're going to have a bank, why not have a bank that serves the public purpose instead of the private purpose?
Sure, can't argue with that. So for this campaign, did you have to get ballot access before the race, or did the party already have that from prior years?
We had it from 2022. But if I don't get a certain percentage of the vote in this campaign, we get kicked off and have to start over again.
Oh, no.
That's another reason for running for governor. State law says we have to get 2% of the vote for either governor or president in this campaign to retain ballot access. The Libertarians have been successful in all past years of actually getting 2% of the vote. Whether we'll be successful or not remains to be seen, but that's our goal.
Oh, sure. So when do you have to get those signatures by? I'm sorry, not the signatures. So, I'm sorry. Okay, so you said 2% of the vote.
I have to get 2% of the number of people that voted in the last gubernatorial election on November 5th of this year.
Oh, okay. I get you. All right, that makes sense now. Okay. So, how are you getting out to the voters? What is your campaign strategy?
Well, I'm going to candidate forums. I'm going to events. We have a website. We are on social media. I try to do as many podcasts and like this as I can. The traditional media doesn't pay any attention to us. They have their own reasons for that, I'm sure, but largely they're afraid that their advertisers, I think, who are either Republicans or Democrats, will be upset if they promote space for alternative parties. They're more
Sure.
likely to interview libertarians than us. We're pretty much off limits. I remember, in fact, a couple of months ago, I was at the North Carolina legislature where I was there with some people who were protesting abortion restrictions, and the news media came out with a camera, and we had a table right next to the people they were interviewing, and the physical gyrations they went through not to have the camera look at us was really amusing.
Wow.
You know,
Oh my. So they went out of their way to exclude any sign of you in the video.
yeah.
That's not surprising, yet it's saddening to hear.
Well, yes, it is. I mean, but yeah, after I've been doing this for almost 24 years now, and I've just come to sort of expect it.
Okay.
The only time the media is going to pay attention to the Green Party is if it looks like they might get enough votes to change the outcome of an election. That's the only time they ever pay any attention.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that you have interviewed on other podcasts. I'm curious, what types of podcasts are you interviewing on? Is it local news podcasts, or what type of podcasts are having you on?
Well, I haven't been on many. I was on one. The name of it escapes. I don't have it in front of me at the moment, and I can't remember
That's
the name
okay.
of it. But generally, they're small, local, independent podcasts. People that are interested in. I mean, there's some of them may be out of state, but generally, it's people that are interested in promoting all candidates as opposed to just the duopoly candidates. And so they'll call and, ask for our opinion and our platform. And of course, we gladly give it to them. I haven't done that in many of them. The more well-known candidates, like presidential candidates or candidates running for federal office, sometimes they'll get on podcasts like Savvy Sabs or other better-known podcasts, but I haven't gotten any of those invitations yet.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So do you have a team helping you out in this race, or are you doing it all by yourself?
I have 5 people that are helping me in various regards. A website
That's good.
developer, someone that's taking care of my social media. I've got someone working on graphic design for our signs and stuff. But I am doing a lot of it myself.
Oh, sure. So you're...
People that have to work. The duopoly parties can take advantage of thousands of volunteers, and,
Yep.
and they also pay people to do these things. And but all of us work that aren't retired. I'm retired, but everybody else on my team works for a living. They have to be at jobs and so forth. So there's only so much that they can do.
Yeah, good point.
When you run, all volunteer organizations are they're I don't know, I don't want to say ideologically aligned. They're committed to their work, but it's still a stress on people to put time into this. Sometimes even 5 hours a week can stress people with children and
Yeah.
so forth. So it's not the best situation, but it's the money tilts the system heavily in favor of the duopoly parties.
Sure, yeah. So since your race is a governor race, it's for the whole state, are you bothering to go door to door, or do you find that inefficient for such a big race?
I intend to go door to door in some precincts in September and October. There are numerous candidate forums across the state that I'll be going to, and as I go to those forums, we'll try to identify the precincts in those areas and go door to door there.
Okay. So you're going to be strategic about which precincts to focus on?
Well, we have data from the state of North Carolina that tells us which precincts are more likely to turn out and which ones are not.
Okay.
And so we'll use that data to make decisions about where to canvass.
Okay. All right. That sounds like a good approach. So, Wayne, how can our audience support you in your campaign?
Well, we always need donations. I hate to people hate to ask for money. It's one of the worst things that I've ever found about politics is having to ask people for money, but we're forced to do it.
Yeah.
So they can go to my website, which is G-O-V, at agreenforgovernor.org. That's all spelled out, lowercase. The word for is spelled out F-O-R. So it's agreenforgovernor.org is the website. What I gave you was the email, my mistake. If they go to agreenforgovernor.org, we can certainly use their donations. If people would like to just fill out the form and on the website and volunteer, I'll try to do my best to find a way to use them. We're going to have people to distribute signs eventually and people to organize meet and greets in various cities. So I'd love to have volunteers as well as donations.
Sure. And what social media platforms are you on?
Well, the Green Party itself is on Facebook. I do have an Instagram account under, let's see, what is it? Green for Governor.
Okay. Green for Governor. All right. So Instagram is your main social media platform then?
Beg your pardon?
So Instagram is your main social media platform then?
At the moment, yes. One of our social media people in the party posts to it regularly.
Okay. Sounds good. So Wayne, we thank you for coming on the podcast today and talking about your campaign. We appreciate hearing what you had to say.
Thank you again for having me.
We wish you all the best in your campaign and everything else you do in life.
Okay. Thank you again.
Bye now.